So we've been spending time on functions. We've seen functions in real life. We've seen functions as a graph. We've created a function, graphed a function using a graphing calculator, using table of values. So we're pretty good with functions, right? Now, what we could do is there are two special points. There are two special points on a graph of a function. The 2 points, and you are familiar with this already, are the x-intercept and then the y-intercept. So what is an x-intercept and what is a y-intercept? So we know that the horizontal axis, that's the x-axis. So wherever your graph, your line crosses the x-axis, that's where your x-intercept is. So in this particular case, here's our x-axis and here's our graph. They intersect or intercept at -8. -8. So we can say, what's the coordinate of this? It's -8, 0. So we can say x-intercept is -8, but the coordinate point coordinate, if we were to write it in a coordinate pair, ordered pair, it's going to be -8, 0. What about the y-intercept? Y-intercept is where your y-axis is getting intersected by the graph, by your line. So that's your y-intercept. Y-intercept. So in this particular case, you can write down the y-intercept is 4, and the coordinate of that coordinate is, what is the coordinate?
The same.
0, 4. Okay, so far so good. Let's take a look at this one, example number 1. We're going to label and we're going to write down the x-intercept and y-intercept. So what's the x? So here's our x-intercept. So the x-intercept is 3. What's the coordinate? Coordinate is 3, 0. Yes. Is that okay? Now this is the y-intercept. Y-intercept. What's the y-intercept? Y-intercept is 6, right? And what's the coordinate?
X is 0, y is 6.
0, 6. 0, 6. Do you notice something? Let's take a look at the x-intercepts first. Do you know this is an x-intercept and this is an x-intercept? Do you notice something? If we look at all the x-intercepts, what do you notice about the x-intercepts? What do you mean all 0?
No.
Is the x 0? So remember, this is an x, y coordinate. The y is 0. Okay, y is 0. So the x coordinate, the x-intercept, the y coordinate is 0. Now let's take a look at the y's. Y-intercept. What do you notice about the y-intercept?
0.
Now the x this time is 0. Yeah, good. What about this one? What's the x-intercept?
0.
Oh, let's be careful. There isn't one. So x-intercept, okay, if we put 0, that means it crosses that particular
1, 2,
point.
3, X is 4.
So x-intercept is
4.
none. There's no x-intercept. Not, there's, right? Because it's horizontal and it doesn't even crosses the x-intercept. This is the x-axis, this is the line, they don't even cross each other. So there's none. What about the y-intercept?
3.
Y is 5.
1, 2, 3. So this is the y-intercept. Y-intercept is 3. What's the coordinate? 0, 3. Okay, coordinate is 0, 3. Is everybody okay? I think we're pretty good with this because we've already seen this before. Now, the calculator. I'm gonna skip this part in here. I'll write down the buttons to press to figure out the x-intercept and y-intercept. Okay, so first reset our calculator because we don't know who used it. Okay, everybody remembered how to reset? Everybody remember how to reset? Okay, let's go ahead and reset. Okay, now what we're gonna do, let's go ahead and type this function into our calculator. Go ahead and type this in onto your calculator. Okay, so far so good. Okay, before you press graph, maybe some of you graphed it already. What kind of graph did you get? Is it an increasing or decreasing?
Decreasing.
Decreasing. Okay. How do you know it's decreasing?
The leading coefficient is negative.
Because
Leading coefficient.
the
The coefficient is negative.
very good, very good. Coefficient is negative, and the coefficient of x, that tells you the slope, right? Very good.
What's the
Awesome.
difference leading and coefficient?
The leading coefficient, which is the slope of the line. Okay, now press graph. Okay, good. Where do you think the x-intercept is there?
X-intercept.
So it kind of looks like it's like at the 0, right? Okay, we can't really see it. Can't really see it. What we can do is, if it's in this form already, we know that this is the y-intercept, right? I'm gonna show you how to do this, figuring this out algebraically, and then figuring this out using a calculator, okay? Because it's not bad. So to calculate y-intercept, to calculate the y-intercept, okay, we're gonna do this, calculating it. So to calculate y-intercept, we're gonna set x equals to 0. Because earlier we said at the y-intercept, x is 0. Okay. So let's just do that. Y equals to negative 5.2. We're going to replace the x by 0 plus 0.87. And we all know how to do this. Order of operation, negative 5.2 times 0 is 0 plus 0.87, 0.87. Okay, so the y-intercept is at 0.87. 0.87. So the coordinate of y-intercept is 0, 0.87. Okay. This is your x. Our x is 0. Our y is 0.87. Now, how do you calculate the x-intercept? So earlier we saw on a graph at the x-intercept, this time y is 0. So is that okay? Does that make sense? Right? Because everywhere there's an x-intercept, the y value is 0. So we're going to do that. We're going to replace it with that. So it's going to be 0 equals negative 5.2 times x plus 0.87. What are we going to do? Are there any suggestions on how can we figure this out?
Divide.
We're going to divide. Yeah, we're going to divide eventually. We've done this before.
It will be 5.8x equal 0.87. After that, we will divide.
Plus 5.2.
Okay. So, so what we're trying to find out is like, what is this number? What is this number that when we multiply by negative 5.2 and then add 0.87, it will give us an answer of 0.
0.
Yeah. So what would it be? So what we're gonna do? Remember our solving of equations.
Minus 0.
Minus 0.87, negative 0.87. That cancels out. Okay. So 0 minus 8.7, it's going to be negative 0.87 equals to negative 5.2 times x. And I think some people were saying we got to divide by negative 5.2. Negative 5.2. Negative 5.2. Negative 5.2 cancels. We're left with the x. Okay. So if you want to get out of your screen, you can just clear it. Let's figure that out. So negative 0.87 divided by negative 5.2 is going to give us positive 0.1673. If we rounded it off, approximately 0.17. So at this particular point, we can figure out the x-intercept algebraically. Okay, algebraically. The y-intercept. Okay. Do you have a visual? Can you visualize this in your mind? Because when you visualize this, it helps. Okay. Whatever at the y-intercept, x is going to be 0. X is going to be 0. So x.
Usually x to be 0. The x must
Always
be 0.
x is 0.
X must be 0.
When?
For y-intercept. Okay. So at the y-intercept, it's going to be, the x is going to be 0. So let's do that. Y equals to 3.45x, oops, times 0 rather, times 0 plus 7.5. And then if we do the orders of operation, 3.4 times 0 is 0 plus 7.5, so it's going to be 7.5.
The 3.5, 3.45.
3.45, yes. Thank you. 3.45. Okay. So the y-intercept is 7.5. So what's the coordinate?
Equal
0,
7.5.
7.5, right? The x is 0, y is 7.5. Now let's calculate the x-intercept. Okay, what are we going to do? Calculate the x-intercept. We're going to set y must be 0. Okay. So that becomes 0 for y. So I'm going to substitute 0 for y equals 3.45x plus 7.5. Okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to manipulate this equation to solve for x. So what's the first step that we got to do? Take away 7.5 on each side. What you do on one side, you got to do it on the other. So that's gone. So 0 minus 7.5 is negative 7.5 equals to 3.45x. And then what's next? What is our next step?
Divide by 3.45.
Yeah, we're going to divide by 3.45. You do it on one side, you got to do it on the other side. So that's gone. So x, now x remains, and then whatever this is, that's your x-intercept. So let's calculate that one. Negative 7.5 divided by 3.45. It's going to be negative 2.17. 2.17.
How about if we first do the 3.45? We eat that better.
It's not going to work. Just enumerate. Do this first, divide by that? No.
No, I mean like 0 is equal to 3.45x plus 7.5. If we first do 3.45x.
Instead, do it before that. The whole,
Up, yes.
yes,
Yeah.
Yeah.
no,
We-
he said we can divide by 3.4 on both sides.
Yeah, that's messier.
Oh.
Messier. Yeah. Messier. It would work, but it's messy. You don't want to do that. Okay, what's the coordinate of this point here? The coordinate is would be negative 2.17 comma 0. Okay. Now this process is nice. You can do it without the calculator. You can do it with a calculator. So I'm going to show you how to do this on a calculator. Okay?
Write down first.
Yeah.
You're
There might not be enough room for us to do that in here, like to do the steps. Or maybe we can. Yeah. Okay. We'll see. We can probably fit it. Okay. So let's go to y equals. Our equation is still there, right? Our function is still there. Okay, and then we press graph. As you can see, the y-intercept is 0.87, so it's like really up there. And then the x-intercept is really, really close to the 0. That's why it's the way it is. Okay?
Can we zoom out the graph?
You mean zoom in.
Yeah, no, zoom out.
Zoom out means zoom out. Zoom out means making it smaller. You mean zoom in. Zoom in. That's what you meant. Okay. Well, the way you can zoom in.
I mean the calculated graph.
I know. I know. Here's what we're gonna do. As you can see, the x-intercept and y-intercept is just somewhere close to the middle, right? We don't need this much
See clearly this point.
x, right? We don't need this much y. So what we can do is we can zero in, make it close up, zoom in, changing the window. So how do we change a window? We can go from -2 to +2, right? And then negative on the y min, -2, y max +2. Okay. So we are trimming off a lot of the spaces on. Okay, now let's take a look at the graph. There. Now it's much better. How can we figure out the y-intercept? How can we figure out the y-intercept? Okay, what did we say? Hey, we know x is 0. So how can we do that? You can go second function, trace. I know you know this already. Second function, trace. What are you going to do next?
Value.
1 for value. Don't worry, we'll write it down.
Yeah, okay.
And then we're going to enter what? 0, right? Because if we want the y-intercept to 0. And then it tells us, oh, the y-intercept is at 0.87. That's what we got, right? Right there, okay? So I'll write it down here to figure out, to calculate y-intercept.
Y is -2.
Okay, to calculate y-intercept, you're gonna go second function. Let's write this down. Second function, trace. Second function, trace. Okay. And then you're gonna press 1 for value. And then you're gonna type in x equals to 0. Okay. Do you notice that this is in a box and then this is in a box? Meaning that is the button. We're going to press the second function button. We're going to press the trace button. And then we're going to pick value. So that's pressing the 1 button. And then we're going to type in 0. Okay? Is that one okay? And then you'll see the the y-intercept. Good. We have a background on that one. Okay.
So
Now-
try to make that, but says y equals 0, I don't know why.
Oh, yeah, we don't have that one, okay?
Yeah, we don't have
Now the other one, the x-intercept. X-intercept is a little bit more complicated using our graphing calculator. So let's walk through it first. Let's walk through it first, and then I'll write down the steps, okay? So in this calculator, it's very old, very archaic. You cannot type in 0 for y, okay? So here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna type in y equals, type in or press y equals, okay, everyone there? And then we're gonna go to y2, go down to y2, go down to y2. I'm gonna wait. Okay. Is everybody in y2? Yeah. And you can see it's blinking. It's waiting for us to enter something. We're gonna put y2 equals 0.
Okay.
Okay, is everybody there? Okay. Remember, y1 is still there. We're just gonna go to y2. We're gonna put 0. Okay, press graph. Looks like nothing happened, yeah? Yeah.
Nothing changed.
Actually, there is. There is something happened.
The scale.
This is what happened. What happened is, this is our first line, y1, and y2 equal to 0 is actually this line here. You can't really see that. I'm going to use a red marker. It actually graphed this line here. Okay? We don't see it because it's not a different color and it's right on the x-axis. That's why we can't see it. So what's going to happen here is we're going to actually find out that point of intersection, because where they cross each other, that's where the x-intercept is. So x-intercept, okay, is where those two lines meet. This is the y1. That's your y1 graph, the slant. And then there's a y2, which is this horizontal line. And where they meet, that's where the x-intercept is. Okay, I'm telling you, it's like a lot of steps in here. So, not so many, but so let's do that. How can we figure out the intersection of those 2 points? Okay, so here we go. Do this along with me. Press second function, trace. Okay. Now, can you see the word intersect?
5.
Intersect. So we're gonna press 5. So we're gonna press 5. It's gonna ask you a whole bunch of questions. It's gonna ask you, is this your first curve? Is y1, which is negative 5.2x plus 0.87 your first curve? Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. So how do you say yes to the calculator? Yes. It's not voice activated, so you gotta press enter.
Okay.
Enter. And then it's gonna ask you another question. It says, is your second curve y2 equals to 0? And your answer is yes. How do you say yes to the calculator? By pressing enter. Press enter. Okay. And then now they're gonna ask you again, would you like me to guess? The answer should be no, but then there's no here. I said yes, go ahead, go guess. So press enter again. And now you see here the intersection of the 2 lines. And okay, pay attention to this part here at the bottom. What do you see at the bottom? this is your x-intercept. At the x-intercept, y is equal to 0. That's why earlier I mentioned like what's a coordinate, because I want us to register that in our mind. At the x-intercept, y is 0. So how do you do that? Let's write that down because there's quite a bit of steps. Okay? So to calculate x-intercept, here are the steps. So y2 equals 0. So we're going to enter, well, I guess I should put enter,
Okay.
y2 equals 0. Your y1 will still be there, right? And then you're gonna go second function, second trace, okay, second trace, and once you go second trace, you're gonna, what did we pick? 5 for intersection, right? We're gonna press the 5, and once we press the 5, it's gonna ask you a whole bunch of questions, and the answer is enter, 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 right? So enter, how many times did we do that? 3 times. Is that okay? Is that good? So let's go ahead and try that for the second equation. Second equation.
So Elsie, how do we know the curve 1, the curve 2? You just
Oh,
say
the curve one would be your, you only have 2 equations, so you only have the first one, which is y1 and y2.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So let's go ahead and clear that. Clear that. Yeah, go ahead and type in the second equation. This one.
Oh,
Oh no, did I just use a permanent marker? Yeah, it does say permanent.
Maybe you need some soap or something.
Yeah, I lost a calculator, now I ruined one. I'll be in big trouble. Okay, well, good enough. 3.45x plus 7.5. Okay, remember our window is out of whack because we changed our window, right? So let's just go to zoom, zoom 6, standard window, zoom 6. Okay. Just remember we changed our window earlier. Okay, so how can we figure out the y-intercept? How can we figure out the y-intercept? Let's do that one first. We're gonna go second function, then trace, and then we're gonna press 1 for value, and then we're gonna put x equals to 0. Enter. So the answer is 7.5. Is that what we got earlier? Yeah, we got 7.5 earlier. Okay, good. Okay. Now let's try to calculate the x-intercept. What do we have to do? Okay, you go back to y equals. We're going to enter y2 0. y2 equals to 0. Then you're going to press second function.
Second function.
And you're going to press trace. And then we're going to press number 5. Press 5. Okay. And then it's just going to ask you a whole bunch of questions. And the answer is yes, yes, yes. And did we get negative 2.17 earlier?
Yeah.
Yeah, so negative 2.17. So that's good. Okay. So looking at that, we have two strategies in figuring out the x-intercept and y-intercept. We can figure the x-intercept algebraically. We could use algebra for that. And also, we could do this, okay? But even though you're using this, you understand where that is coming from, right? Because you can visualize where the x-intercept here. Hey, this is my x-intercept. The x-intercept there, the y is going to be 0. This is my y-intercept. And then the y, at the y-intercept, x coordinate is 0. Okay. We have about 5 minutes. I think we could do 2A, number 3A. It says here, draw the graph of y equals to 2.5x minus 14. Okay, how do we draw the graph there?
Can we do that without using much?
You can.
That's it. Draw that.
We can, yeah. Do you want to do that without the calculator? Okay, we'll do it without the calculator. Okay, how do we do that? What's the... Okay, let's calculate y-intercept. What's the y-intercept? Okay, to calculate the y-intercept, we set x equals to 0. And that one's easy, right? Y equals to 2.5 times 0 minus 14. So y equals to negative 14. Oh, you guys like the challenge. I was ready to punch this in onto the calculator. That's good. That is amazing. Now, to calculate the x-intercept, how do we do that? We're going to set y equals to 0. So it's going to be 0 equals to 2.5 times x minus 14. Okay.
0.
So what do we do to solve for x? You add 14 on each side. So 0 plus 14 is 14.
Equals to
14 divided by 2.5. I don't know what that is. $5.6. Okay. So those are our x-intercept and y-intercept. So we're gonna plot those in. So let's do the negative 14 y-intercept. So you can go 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14. So you go negative 14. I'm going down by 2, a scale of 2, because and then the other one is 5.6. So you can go a scale of 1. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So 5.6 would be there. Let's use our ruler so it's better. So,
2.5. Oh, sorry.
sorry,
Yeah.
did I make a mistake?
X is,
Is it okay?
yeah, it's
Okay. So that's our, so here I use a scale of 1. And then this one I use a scale of 2. So that's our graph. Okay. That's good. I think I'm gonna stop right here. Leave this up. If you want, if you have time tonight, you could go ahead and try this one. Try that one on your own. See how that works. And then we'll continue on this one tomorrow. Okay.